Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Right Opinion, the home of a twat with too much free time. And today we need to take a meme and go behind it. Wow, I'm so excited. No, fuck you. Pyro and Emp both already did that joke. Today's topic is not going to make you enthusiastic or happy or anything like Kyle or Behind the Meme seems to attempt to or attempted to convey through his videos. No, today we're dealing with topics that aren't inherently happy. So I'm sorry to anyone who came to my channel looking for a happy, smiley person. My life is misery, soon yours will be too. Because today we're dealing with the tragic tale of Behind the Meme and issues surrounding semantics regarding that. And boy, do we have a lot to discuss. Because I'm going to be talking about a lot of concepts, some of them a bit more philosophical even, because I think it encompasses an interesting element of content creation, and we'll get to that in a bit. But first, Behind the Meme. Who is he to all those who may not be aware of his infamy? So essentially, Behind the Meme is a meme channel set up by creator Kyle Bryce. Don't worry, his name is public. But he brands it as having the intention of educating those who are unfamiliar with memes, providing the audience with a relatively light explanation of the origin of the meme and applications of it. To take a quick example, Harambe. Harambe is a deceased gorilla who eventually became a meme after the meme connoisseurs decided it would be, and in this instance, Behind the Meme explains how Harambe has came to be. You know, whole enclosure incident, satirisation of people's reaction, and so on. These videos rapidly picked up steam, with views coming in from the first upload. This wasn't Kyle's first channel, so he knew how to make his videos semi-competent. He quickly upgraded and realized the business opportunity. It was all going right. Video after video was a hit with the audience, and he was flying high with a group of people who had his back. Yet fast forward less than 2.5 years later, and it's almost like we've stepped into a different dimension. The happy, colourful Behind the Meme is gone, and in its place is a shell. A shell that is the draw of multiple controversies over the span of just over a year. Well, after a spell where his videos were performing abysmally with views and ratings alike, he took a break. Now we'll delve into the details of why this flatlined in a bit. Stay patient, my friends. However, with every break came the return, and Behind the Meme came back to a fanfare of broken brass. However, the video he posted, What Happened to Behind the Meme, seemed to represent a perspective of hope, one in which he had been dragged down by so much, but now he was in a better place, ready not to fumble this situation.
But I have done a tremendous amount of growing over the last few months while away from this channel. Growing that has only been able to happen thanks to the luxuries YouTube has afforded me. This personal development wouldn't have happened had I not taken a bit of time to myself to attempt to discover who I am and what happiness means to me.
He had almost 800,000 subscribers. Most of us will never receive that opportunity. He was a new man, ready to take on the world. But then he posted his 5-part series, which were dark in their presentation and disturbing in their context, with mental breakdowns, vague foreshadowing language, a far cry from his initially rather innocent child-friendly content of his meme synopsis videos. This understandably had people concerned. Eventually, at the end of this 5-part series, a fellow to say was staged. This has understandably caused a whirlwind of reactions within the community, ranging from sympathy to criticism. What we're going to do today is break it all down, because honestly, it is an absolute clusterfuck, and it's hard to work out who's right, who's wrong, and if anyone is right, to be honest. Today I have a lot of questions that many people have. Why did this happen? Why did the innocent meme reviewer end up in what must be some sort of delusional state of mind? What were the causes of this? Were these causes justified? How could such a cheerful person so intent on spreading knowledge turn into one of the most twisted characters online? I also want to precursor with the usual statement that although it's important to be sympathetic to anyone's mental conditions as they may influence their behavior, it equally doesn't alleviate actions. As a public figure, they ensure responsibility that is enabled by their fanbase. I will be criticizing the actions on an observational basis, what I see and what I think. I don't think I have too much to add, but there's a lot to discuss, so we might as well get into it.
Do you ever wonder the meaning of today's popular memes? Do you wonder about the history of some of the classics? Do you sometimes feel left out when you see others using a term you've never heard before? Don't worry, we have you covered.
In his Draw My Life video, Kyle, which is what I'll call him when addressing him personally, noted that he was drawn to make a meme review channel during the Harambe craze, where people were wondering what the meme was about exactly, something that crossed all of our minds undoubtedly during the discovery of memes. I think this is an interesting element. His channel was born out of something innate, a curiosity that was found in many other people, which is arguably why it rose so quickly, because his videos almost encompassed a growing curiosity. Now, if we are to pull up the Google trend mechanism, we can see that if we date Behind the Memes channel inception at around August 2016, as a trend, memes were about to reach their peak. Now, trends themselves encompass information very interestingly, because for me, a trend like anything has phases. Now, there may be a scientific theory behind this, but let me just formulate my own hypothesis to simplify it. We have a phase of ignorance where we don't know anything about the topic, the discovery phase where we're exposed to the topic, and then we have the rejection or assimilation phase where we either choose not to pursue such culture or we throw ourselves in there. What may follow afterwards, which isn't really documented here, is the forgetting phase, which is where people begin to withdraw from such a topic. Now, memes is such a general culture that it's unlikely to die soon. However, these specific memes do have that. These are all important factors to consider because at the time that Behind the Meme started up, we can see that the trend search for meme was heading in an upward projection. If we were to apply my theory, an upward trend can only occur if more people are in the discovery phase. Now, the discovery phase is marked by the transition from ignorance to knowledge, and people being interested but not really knowing where to start. Now, at that stage, many people need entry-level understandings of memes, and I know I'm talking about it like it's a fine art, but there is a craft to it. And these things often exist on tiers, even when they're particularly subtle. So we're witnessing an influx of people into this culture, and that's partly why Behind the Meme works so well. It was aided by the fact that he started his channel during one of the most fertile periods for these memes. And honestly, I watched the Harambe video, and although the production values were fairly cheap,
welcome to Behind the Meme.
As videos in general go, it didn't seem bad. It was a fairly easy video to open with. He was dealing with something that he knew people felt. And as channels go that aid the discovery phase, it was tonally consistent in its presentation, it was simple, it was straightforward, it had a demographic, and it knew its demographic like the back of its hand. Bright colors, a high energy voice, which we'll discuss more later. He knew exactly who he was appealing to. The sort of people who wanted an explanation in the most reduced fashion. We're not necessarily interested in dissecting the intricacies. The other thing that we noticed by looking at Google Trends is that even though its gradient was going upwards, it was already a strongly established genre with a committed fan base. Now, memes differ in their size and longevity on the platform, and there are some memes that still have relevance today in our conversation, some memes that outlast the rest. I want you to hold this thought. Going back to the discovery phase, typically the memes that we discover are the most popular rather than the most modern. Now, it's true that a modern meme may be popular at the same time, but there will always be ones that are more iconic. This is important as what Behind the Meme tended to do was go back to a lot of popular old memes that may have existed before Harambe and cover them while the landscape was a tad dry. Whether it was Dat Boy, a meme from May 2016, a few months before, or even ones that were a few years before, like Doge, which I'm not going to call Doge. I think that's frankly disgraceful. Thank you. Pronounce it Doge. Don't put pineapples on pizza. 2 simple principles. And I don't want to hear it again, Mr. Bryce. Anyhow, Doge came from 2013 and he was covering it. This was a smart business move on his behalf. He knew which topics to choose to keep the fans coming back for more, and how to draw in people who had just discovered the wondrous concepts of the
meme.
As mentioned earlier, Behind the Meme was as inoffensive as the channels came. In fact, Kyle seemed a fairly harmless person just trying to provide an insight on the source of a meme. And this was an inherently positive facet for a channel like his. He was completely out of the drama. How could someone like Behind the Meme end up in drama? He also distanced himself from any other form of commentary and didn't think to comment on such affairs. Now, I will explain why this eventually came back to hurt him, but being an independent creator allowed him to just hustle away on his own, spreading memes to people who were probably drifting too with regards to content. Behind the Meme almost branded himself as a semi-commercial channel. Many people compared Kyle to a Watch Mojo, as epitomized by that energetic commercial voice. And this is definitely not an unwarranted comparison, but he did attempt to build a closer brand with his viewers, whereas Watch Mojo kind of accepted that most of their viewers are going to be in and out, he did attempt to build a stronger bond, often trying to integrate a few more jokes, even though they were a bit shit, and side comments that would establish his character, almost trying to mimic Matthew Santoro, another creator who tried to integrate fairly generic ideas with his own persona. Admittedly, he didn't quite do it as well, lacking facecam just kind of mutes the delivery on such expressive comments, but I can understand what he was going for, and for a while it definitely worked for some people. His first video on Harambe was just a basic explanation. With every video he tried to extend it and make it a bit longer, and taking the moments to add those extra bits of banter.
Fast food, America's favorite pastime, next to apple pie, baseball, and watching porn. You better clear your search history before your mom comes into the room.
We have this channel that had this huge backlog of timeless memes and a consistent style and presentation and clear theme. It was an algorithm's dream. So it jumped from strength to strength, while at the same time you had this guy at the helm, although not overflowing with personality, quirky enough. He could bring an audience back, and he had tapped into trends that were on the rise. All these things carried him forward, and by being a very placid fellow, it seemed impossible that anyone would want to hate him for what he was doing. I mean, it was completely harmless, was it not? The content may have been simple, but who cares? It was helping people discover memes. How could anyone ever stop someone when all they're doing is entertaining others? Well, let's talk about culture. Motherfuckers. Right, so how on earth could someone like Behind the Meme ever attract hate? He's wholesome, friendly, and completely harmless. Or is he? Now, he hasn't touched any kids, hasn't made any racist tweets, and he certainly hasn't sold any unreasonably priced Christmas calendars. So what the hell happened? One word. Commentary. You see, in commentary, we're a bunch of judgmental bastards. That's not always a bad thing, but oh my god, was Behind the Meme the epitome behind the notion that no channel is beyond the concept of criticism, and that you can't just masquerade yourself with a friendly persona to escape it. But how did people root out criticism out of something so perceptively objective? Well, to do that, we have to understand culture. Without fundamental concepts of value, everything is subjective, and as abstracts they still are to an extent. However, once culture embeds ideas with them, they can obtain relative levels of success. To take an example is maths, or math as you American twats call it. Maths makes sense because we have assigned clear values to numbers. We have rationalized them through culture, and this is important. Now, I'm not saying that culture is just this completely social construct. It may come from evolutionary traits. But the point is that from these basic fundamental premises yield many different cultures, and each of them are based in different ideas that set up what is viewed as acceptable and what isn't. And that's typically a good thing. However, this competition does create something more objective, and that's how successful a culture is with regards to its premises, how well the people are doing in it relative to not just themselves but to other cultures. In Lemon's video, you can see how clearly he contrasts the culture of what he calls outsiders, people who are well educated in the notion of the meme, with normies, the people who aren't.
The normies are, and have always been, the majority, the mainstream, the hump of the bell curve. The outsiders include anyone who rejects mainstream media in favor of content which matches their more niche and unconventional tastes. In the 80s, the outsiders were mocked and outcast by the normies, only able to seek safety in the odd comic book store or sci-fi convention.
Now, based on this, quote, outsider culture as a generality probably has its aims. These aims are subjective to the normies, however, these are the aims that unite people into this culture. And this is the one thing that Behind the Meme didn't understand, that there was a culture, and that to many people, his videos contradicted that culture. To the casual observer, it was just a guy talking about memes. To someone like Lemon, it was an assault on everything that he stood for as a proud memer, and he had to send a message to everyone who didn't understand what he felt. So he made that video.
So I just want to take these last few minutes to tie up some loose ends. First of all, I want to say that I do not hate Behind the Meme. I just hate this idea that what he's doing is perfectly okay and that we have some sort of obligation to make sure that no normie gets left behind. No, he has to understand that there are negative consequences to what he's doing.
This represents what I brand meme patriotism, which sounds kind of bizarre, but let me explain. There's a culture that many people believe is the best way to go. It creates the best memes, creates the best banter in a majority of their opinions, and people are happy with it. And then you have someone like Behind the Meme coming in and executing the ideas in a different way that contradicts how people view it, and it's an affront to them. But most of all, it's an affront to the culture in general. And those memers who have always been ostracized from the normie world now have the same normie world turning up and trying to co-opt their sacred memes, which is what is part of their identity. Basically, it's meme cultural appropriation. Can't believe I just said that, and I'm definitely exaggerating there, but you get what I'm saying. And because these people entered this culture and were counterproductive to these values, people felt that their memes were being affected. Emblemman's concern was that the quality of these memes was being degraded, and their lifespan decreased. Now, I don't think Behind the Meme as an individual was front and center to that idea. And honestly, the thought that this guy could somehow ruin the length and trend of memes seems a bit far-fetched, particularly given how memes had a variability. But I could see when applying these standards that Behind the Meme does run counterintuitively to those cultural fundamentals. Emblemman's video arguably did over-dramatize the implications, but as a comprehensive criticism of content, it served its purpose fairly well. And that's what commentary is. It was the same with Jinx, same with Lele Pons. On the surface, they never did anything obscenely awful, but make content that by our standards was bad. But when you look deeper, people feel that content like that, Behind the Meme included, has implications on how culture is viewed, how people engage with it themselves, and how that conflicts with their views and how that affects their enjoyment. The commentary community is a savage bunch, and if there's a set of creators who make what many commentators view as subpar content and they don't receive criticism, which there are a few, it's only because those creators have ties with the community, and half the commentators are also cowardly hypocrites who don't want to upset ties with creators who they may be associated with. But don't tell them I said that. Anyhow, my point is, don't ever believe that the community merely goes after the criminals. Behind the Meme is a prime example of that. They went against what had been established culture, and they were torn apart for that. On top of this, it didn't help that Behind the Meme's content was as safe and commercial as it could be, something that meme content is antithetic to. So suddenly the idea that he used stock photos became an insult, and so many other elements. It's not offensive, but it's unoriginal, uninspired, generic cookie-cutter content, which would make someone who's ingrained in the culture feel insulted by. These people who are discovering memes are going to be introduced to this guy as some sort of quote teacher, as he likes to brand himself.
If they would take a step back and look at the big picture of things, they would see that I'm just a teacher.
It's like fraud to some of his harshest critics. He's selling himself as a connoisseur, but the truth is far from that pitch. So instead of really having this person who made wholesome, harmless content, people felt suddenly their meme culture was under attack from people like Behind the Meme, who were simplifying and misrepresenting their work, commercializing it, and essentially normifying it. And as many of these people on the website found themselves there because they were alienated by the same mainstream culture, it was like a kick in the face. It's sentimentally based argumentation, but I understand it. So what would be a content critique was turned into an actual movement against a creator for what he represents, the selling out of memes. And boy, does that open a whole new can of worms for Mr. Bryce here. Now, as said, Behind the Meme so desperately tried to avoid involving himself in anything drama related. So when the drama did finally transpire, he had no clue how to react properly. Emblemman's video was extremely influential, but he wasn't the first prominent creator to cover him. Anthony Fantano, host of the now defunct That Is The Plan, another meme review channel, made a video satirizing Behind the Meme, touching on its commercialism and lack of originality and personality.
And today, we take a look at the Rickroll. From the comments on my channel that aren't botted, I have received many requests for the Rickroll meme. Every time I have come across this meme online, I have liked the meme. I like memes, you guys. Please accept me.
It was pretty funny, and exactly the sort of bait that only an insecure fool would fall for. However, Behind the Meme is an insecure fool, and trying to respond, placing him in a position that was completely out of his comfort zone. Now this already compromised two core elements of him and left him savagely exposed. As mentioned earlier, he had always tried to create a more personal connection with his audience. Now when combining this with his content, although his personality was definitely contrived, it was passable. It kind of came with the territory. When you're stepping out your comfort zone and responding to someone in a way where you're not just providing information like your other content and you're actually trying to express legitimate argumentative points, you can't just do it in a happy, jolly tone, especially when trying to convey other emotions. It sounds unhealthy. So why on earth did he respond like this? It's the classic problem of being a stranger to criticism for so long. When we all receive harsh criticism for the first time round, it feels huge. It takes a massive toll on us. Like everything, it just knocks us back, and whenever we face it down, everything in the moment just seems bigger than it actually is. We feel it's coming for our reputation and our standing, and we feel the need to defend ourselves. With that said, responding to a satire is pretty far-fetched, and through this, Kyle exhibited extensive insecurity in the content that he was making, possibly validating the criticisms being leveled at him by Fantano. When you watch a serious Matthew Santoro vid, it's not done with the tone, "Welcome back guys, Matthew Santoro, and today we have to talk about domestic abuse," which makes me very sad. The videos are a completely different tone, and they allow Santoro to open up a new side to the audience, which more successfully builds a relationship than any transfer of persona. That's what Bryce needed to do, and instead we got this.
In all seriousness, this video was all in good fun. I just had to respond to Anthony's video because he randomly decided to attack me and my viewers, and I didn't like that.
Jesus Christ. And once Lemon and videos that followed from other creators showed up how fragile his persona was, it put him on borrowed time. The problem was, he hit a characteristic contradiction. His tone was too much like a Watch Mojo host, as mentioned earlier, and you can't create a deeper persona for that. In fact, watching the videos, although he did attempt to deepen his character in ways we'll address soon, one of the very awkward changes was he progressively upped his persona to 11. If we go from one of his first videos,
Hello internet, and welcome to Behind the Meme, where we take a look at the meaning and the origin of your favorite memes. Today we have a look at Dodge.
to this,
Hello internet, and welcome to Behind the Meme. Today we have a look at Gru's plan.
the only change is the increasingly insipid tone. He seems to have wrongly attributed his quirky persona to the success of the channel, and he so continues to up the gears, and it becomes nauseating and so transparently fake. This will become particularly problematic for your viewer base, who are going to be drawn in by your rather juvenile tone because they'll inevitably grow out of it. In spite of criticisms, the least you could say is that your Harambe video could be watched by people of all ages. Any of the newer stuff seems specifically aimed at the youngest denomination, who will never stick around anyway. What inflames this scenario is the zeitgeist. As said multiple times before, this was the era where happy-go-lucky personas died. We want brooding, deeper characters, and his persona became outdated very quickly. Equally, when trying to develop character, he often turned to a very sensitive topic like Stefan Karl. And once again, I can't look into a person's mind and decipher their motivations for making a video like that, but it seemed more of a way to prove that he was a good guy. And although I don't necessarily think showing that you're a kind person is a bad thing, if you go out of your way to make videos that divert from your normal style, and on top of it, immediately after you receive criticism, as documented by my best mate Pyro, it seems rather insincere.
Nothing wrong with bringing up the topic, but the fact how he's got himself involved in controversy and then the upload after is something that you're not really allowed to hate him for because it's a serious topic. It kind of borders on FouseyTube manipulation, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he's just a nice guy, giving a shout out to Stefan Karl.
It doesn't seem like character development, it seems like a construction of what he wants people to see. The topics of your videos should not solely be dictating your character. However, none of this mattered as long as he was still pulling views. As noted on my Zoe Burger video, providing you have a positive like to dislike ratio, your video typically tends to maintain rotation with the YouTube algorithms. If it's on a trending meme, we're all quids in. You see, in a way, Behind the Meme situation had created a very strange dynamic. The criticism from commentators like Emp, Fantano, and Pyro meant that there was this swathe of people who were completely out for blood whenever he uploaded. He gained a level of infamy. Equally though, if he could reach beyond there and hit a demographic of casual viewers, he'd probably be able to alleviate the hatred, as those people aren't really concerned with the culture. And at first, this seemed to be the case. He seemed to be able to scrape the views to keep a positive ratio over those who were vehemently against him. However, barely a year after all this had began, in August, the dislikes began to win out, and it began to kill him. Probably one of the most ironic tales to this is that people who he introduced memes to, who provided him the views and support at the initial stage, then likely were the ones who became more educated and were then the ones to come back and contribute to his channel's demise. That's the thing, if you're an unassuming citizen discovering memes, then Behind the Meme is perfect. Once you're in the culture, you don't need him, and in fact you may come to loathe him. Equally, as the popularity of the meme stops its ascension, he had less people to introduce it to, and increased accessibility online to memes further meant that he had even less utility than before. On top of this, he used his get out of jail free meme cards early on. By covering old, popular, more timeless memes already, he had nothing left, and he had to rely on the modern memes to be popular. And as Emp rightfully noted, although we've definitely experienced an increase in the number of memes, and some of them do seem popular in the moment, they're not lasting the way that many of the older ones did. And that just doesn't bode well for a channel like Behind the Meme. The markets had been flooded. His time was up. There was nothing. His personality gave us nothing, his content gave us nothing, and the audience response had soured. And the demand had plateaued. It was a timely death. And eventually, after a run with diminishing returns, Behind the Meme stopped. But it wasn't over.
Today we have a look at
Meme return.
As said, Kyle clearly viewed himself as being able to rebrand. His meme review was dead, but what if he changed his content? Did something else he was passionate about? There were so many opportunities out there for him that he could pursue. He made the return video we spoke about, then made a tribute video to Stefan Karl after his passing, and then came his little series. Now, I'm not going to detail every single thing, but I am going to give a quick summary, just so people know what this is about. If you want to watch the videos, they're still up on his channel. It begins with a trip to the store in which he buys the most familiar brand of vodka, Smirnoff, implying that there will be intoxicated antics occurring. In his second video, he has consumed some vodka, shoots the shit, talks vaguely about the future of his channel, showing you around his house and making random comments, and so on. The third episode includes him driving intoxicated, and then talking about some deep stuff while contemplating. So here is the character development. We're getting a bit deeper, a bit darker. Now, there are some details that I'm going to leave out because I think they're important for the judgment, but you can tell that his tone is changing and becoming more disturbed. The fourth episode is more of this, just him back in an indoor environment, crying, drinking more, and so on. And the final episode is the fateful moment where he takes his own life. Truly tragic. Of course, it was a ruse. But why did he do something like this? Well, to prove a point. He was telling his story of how he felt and the hate he received.
But through my experience, it caused me to take a step back and have a look at our society as a whole. How we treat each other unfairly, how quick we are to turn our backs on another human, how easily it is to forget we're all in the same boat just trying to get by. Sadly, all these negative characteristics seem to be amplified on the internet where people think they are anonymous. It sucks, but that is how our society seems to conduct itself lately.
It's clear through this, he felt a lot of it was unwarranted and yielded unnecessary consequences. So how do I feel? Is he right? Was the hate too much? Well, I think it's a double-edged sword. The problem is, we as public figures have to be prepared to take criticism. The thing about Behind the Meme is that he never really dealt criticism. As he said, he was just spreading positivity. How can you hate someone for spreading love? And on one hand, I don't think the hate messages, cruel comments, and so on are justified. If they're directed in a personal fashion, they're very seldom justified, and I'll stand by that. And if you want to challenge them and take them on, then more power to you. Things like doxing, also absolutely terrible. And I think calling out people like that is reasonable. On the other hand, the sort of vague narrative that was constructed through this seems to encompass all the culture as hate. And whether you meant it to come across that way, the sort of very forced comments that were inserted in the build-up was the one identifiably fake element. Although it was implausible, it was otherwise well done. Here's the point. As a guy, you may be lovely. You may be delightful. And although some of Emp Lemon's criticism seems slightly doubtful to me, they weren't based in impossible outcomes. And they were delivered in a way that separated the creator from the content. And they weren't particularly harsh, although they did imply some strong consequences. At the end of the video, Emp even says this himself, that he's not there to hate on Behind the Meme the person, not hate on Kyle. So whether it was Kyle's intention to turn criticism onto Emp or Pyro, or anyone else who kind of led this cultural war, or not, the fans who are interpreting it that way right now really need to think about this. As creators, we can have a responsibility with how we deal our message. If we feel someone is making bad content or can do better, we shouldn't hold our tongues. If we can turn it into a good video, then hell, we should go for it. I don't know why we wouldn't. And equally, there will always be people who take up a cause with the sole purpose of hating. What we need to make sure is that we don't rile people up unnecessarily. I don't think any of the critics that we spoke about today did that. Equally, Emp did actually see Behind the Memes channel as an actual threat to a culture very intimate to him. Of course he was going to make a video on it. He wants to see his community thrive. Behind the Meme stood against that to him. And so of course it became a discourse of what's best for a community. And that's a complex conversation and people misinterpret it. But it didn't make his points less valid. Equally, I find the notion of why can't we all just be positive utterly pretentious? And everyone knows I've never liked it. Criticism isn't always meant to be positive. Imagine that being the case for movies. The Transformers films entertained a lot of people, made a lot of people happy. Doesn't mean that people can't find reasonable explanations to bash on it and deal out criticism. Ray Shrimmered. I am not a fan, but some people really enjoy it. But it doesn't mean I shouldn't hate it. Do I endorse sending hate messages to the lads? No, not at all. You know, they're making music. But you have to separate those two elements, or else it just seems like you're using suicide to get back at your critic, which is never a good look. Positivity can be a dangerous veil for very sketchy behaviour, and if you don't go after someone simply because they seem nice on the surface, you may be looking over some very seedy business, which there have been many examples of. Criticism doesn't always make us feel good, but we're not entitled to a bubble of happiness and smiles, and when I deal criticism, I'll do my best to be honest and fair, but at the same time, I know someone might still be offended by it. It's down to them to harness that criticism, and that's something Behind the Meme never did. He never changed his content for the better, he never listened to what people were saying, and he paid the price for that in the subsequent ratings. I can't really feel bad for him on that behalf. At the end of the day, someone made a better argument for why his content wasn't that good, regardless of who it pleased or how positive it was. Kyle wants Behind the Meme mostly in the past, and I think that's sensible. It's had its day, and as concepts, his channel was on its way out regardless, even without the hate. I don't know if he's going to have trouble restarting, as I feel like a lot of his critics will stick around, but maybe we can become familiarized with a different side of a person who we've really only gone after that one persona in the past. I feel it's time. Is Behind the Meme a victim? It depends how you define victimhood. If being subject to disproportionate hate makes him a victim, then yeah, he might well be. It seemed unnecessary, but at the same time, it's a consistent principle applied across all realms of commentary. We've all received death threats, and looking at the actual creators who've criticized them, they haven't been particularly harsh, and attacking them for merely having narratives that contradict your image doesn't wash with me. At the end of the day, they're just creators who wanted you to do your genre more justice, and I hope that you will keep that in mind when taking your content in a future direction. So yeah, those are my fairly extensive thoughts on Behind the Meme. Interesting bloke. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please tell me what you think. Also, I want to give a big shout out to the editors as always. I'm going to leave their links in the pinned comment. Go check them out, have a subscribe. They do a lot of good work for me. These videos would not be as top-notch as they are without the help of these editors, so definitely check them out if you can. If you want to reach me on Twitter, @TheRightOpinion, Facebook, I'll leave my links there in the pinned comment too, Discord, also in the pinned comment, everything's in the pinned comment. I want to give everyone some love. Anyhow, I don't think I really have too much else to add. I don't know exactly when this is going to be out, but I hope it's out in time to at least maintain some of your interest. Anyhow, we'll just have to find that out. Until then, I'm The Right Opinion, and I'll see you in the next one.